Okay. Okay, so GMO greetings, yet I say once again, I'm Odwirafo, Kisi, Ranembata, Akan, Odwirafo of Aquamumine, Amaruka, Atifimuli Aquamu Nation, in North America, within Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people, in the Western Hemisphere. So, let me expand this. So, what we want to talk about tonight, we're talking about Kankye, our Conjure Film Festival, which is coming up this fall, discounted tickets and so forth. But we want to get into this notion of Kankye, which is conjure, as Afuraitkaitnut, meaning African cosmology, specifically African, quote unquote, African American cosmology, the expressions of ancestral religion we preserved in our blood circles in North America, Hoodoo, which is Akan, and Juju, which is Yoruba, Voodoo, which is Eve, Wanga, which is Ovambo, and Ngengang, which is Fang, Gullah, which is Gola, Kisi, which is Geechee, and the various traditions, Gris Gris and so forth. These various traditions that we preserved as Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people, forced into the Western Hemisphere, we preserved our ancestral traditions, ancestral religious expressions, and they all share a fundamental foundational cosmology, which is rooted in Kankye, which in English that's corrupted into conjure, but we call it Kankye. And we have the etymological origins and cosmological origins of the term. We laid that out in a document. We're going to go into that, but also the ritual expression of that. So first, let's look at this term Kankye, where it comes from. Then we want to show a specific expression and how it's shared across various expressions of Black people from different ethnic groups forced into North America, but we held on to a specific unifying expression of ancestral religion, which actually empowered us and guided us to free ourselves from enslavement, escape plantations, wage war against the white so-called slave owners, burn their plantations down, free more of our people, and ultimately leading to our own freedom totally and ending of enslavement when we went to war against the United States. So first, we're going to get into this definition of Kankye, and then we're going to get into the ritual expression. So let me take this down. But before we get into that, so what you see on the screen here, Kankye Conjure Film Festival, this is going to be our first annual. We had tried to do this before, but because of the pandemic, a couple of years, the venues were shut down as far as movie theaters. So that slowed us up. But that's okay, because in that time, we've released 2 documentary films, and we're working on our 3rd documentary film. They're all in the conjure film genre, which is a term that we created, we defined, we coined. And we're going to accept more films from Black filmmakers. So you'll have a number of different conjure films in this Conjure Film Festival, which is going to be November 7th. And we're going to talk about how you can get early discounted tickets right here on the website. The link is in the chat room. And I'll put that link up here right now. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let's look at this. Okay. First, let me show you a couple of images from the films that you can watch right here on our channel. So when you look at our channel, you'll see the documentary film section. This is the most recent film that we released, Hoodoo, Akan, Ancestral Religion in North America. And you can watch that for free on our site, on this YouTube channel. It's 102 minutes, full feature documentary film and so forth. And we're showing how Hoodoo is the Akan ancestral religion. We're the first to prove that. Of course, we are practitioners of our ancestral religion and so forth, but this is what the film is about. And we're the first to prove that the terms like hoodoo and mojo and haint, like you heard in the film's centers, the haint spirits and so forth, all of these terms, Gopher Doctor with the Gopher dust and so forth, Johnny Conqueror or High John the Conqueror, which is Nyama Kakaru in the Akan language. All of these terms are Akan terms defined in the Akan language and culture, which is preserved in as Hoodoo. Now, Let me switch over. And this second flyer is from the first documentary film that we produced. And this is Amaruka Adibisa. And that is Amaruka is, we show how that ancient term Amaruka was corrupted into America by the whites and their offspring. But originally that term is Amaruka, the land Ka of Amaru, the plumed or feathered serpent, in that ancient cosmology. So when we say Amarukafo, that means American. Adebisa means divination. So we're talking about Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people in America, quote unquote, African American ancestral divination. So in the film, we won an award for the best original documentary at the Kwanzaa Film Festival in New York. We also screened our film in the Pembroke Taparelli Arts and Film Festival in California. We sat on a panel dealing with that. But different traditions. Mama Mawusi from the Juju tradition, which is Yoruba tradition in North America. And let me expand this for you. So all of us are in the film, showcasing the film. See Mama Mawusi in the white on the left, representing the Yoruba tradition in North America, which is called Juju, from the Yoruba term Ju, to cast or throw and so forth. Rekit Kajara Niya Nebehet. She represents the Fang tradition in North America, which is Ngengang, mispronounced sometimes gang, but that's the Fang term, F-A-N-G, the Fang people of Gabon and Cameroon. They brought the Ngengang tradition to North America. You have Sechat Tut Ankh Wajet, the Ovambo tradition in North America, which is part of the Gullah constellation, the Wanga tradition. So when you hear about throwing the Wanga and so forth, and Wanga dolls and things like that, that comes from the Ovambo people from Namibia and Angola, which became part of the Gullah constellation along the Gullah Geechee corridor, going from North Carolina to South Carolina to all the way down to Virginia, and, Georgia and Florida and so forth. But in that entire constellation, the Ovambo people were part of that as well. Voodoo Queen Galinda Laveau out of New Orleans, dealing with the Voodoo tradition, which is Ewe, ancestral religion in North America, and of course myself, dealing with Hoodoo, which is Akan, ancestral religion in North America. So we show the different forms of divination, spiritual consultation, spiritual readings that were preserved in North America, whether it's palm leaf divination, water divination, the laying of hands and so forth, different forms of divination that we preserve in North America that we still practice today. We talk about the different forms. Mama Mawusi is out of Cincinnati. Rakik Gajara Niyaya Nebehet is out of Georgia. Sechat is out of Florida. Galinda Laveau is out of New Orleans, and myself, I'm out of Chicago and so forth. So different parts of the country, different traditions, and we talk about all of it. Now, okay, so let's get into this notion of Conjure as cosmology, or Kankye as cosmology. And in fact, hold on one second. I'm going to pull up our Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation Festival Journal. We have a yearly conference here in Washington, D.C., the Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation Festival. And we just had our 11th annual festival in October. We produced a journal every year for the first 3 years. It's a free download. You can access it at any time. It's one of the 31 books I've published. You can access the e-versions for free on our website. But in this particular journal, which was the second year, we defined the term Kankye, and I just want to go over that quickly and then show an example of that process. But it was important to define the term Kankye because we've been using that. Sometimes people will call our ancestral religious traditions Hoodoo in North America. Sometimes they say, well, we practice Kankye or the conjure man, conjure woman, and they'll call the entire tradition the conjure tradition. So conjure, which we pronounce Kankye, spans across all expressions of Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral culture, whether it's on the continent or in North America. So when we say Kankye, conjure man, conjure woman, that's what we're talking about. But it's not an Africanization of the English word conjure. We didn't just Africanize a word and mispronounce English words and start calling our tradition that. It's actually our term, and they corrupted our term. It's the other way around. So we prove that. Kankye, the Akan, origin of the term conjure is Hoodoo. As you can see here, the image here is of an ancient priest in ancient Kemet, one of the Sem priests here on the left. Then you see in one of the papyri, you see this priest pouring libation to the spirit of the man and his wife and so forth, pouring the libation out of the vessel. You see he has a shaved head and so forth. And then here on the left, on the right side, you have a ritual spiritual couple from the Akan people in North America. You see the braided beard, the shaved face, and the braided beard, just like you see in ancient Kemet, the shaved head, no mustache, no facial hair, but you see the braided beard and so forth. That's part of the ritual practice. Now, so first we define what conjure is. In the Akan dictionary, you see the word kankye, to pray, rehearse, speak a prayer, to invoke or call upon the deity. Kankye means to utter incantations, sound vibrations, to make the spirits come forward. So when you see kankye, it's a contraction of two words, kan and ache. So let's look at those two words. That's why kankye means prayer, invocation. Kankye means to pray. So that's the verb form is to pray. Kankye, ritual invocation. Kankye is the noun version of prayer and invocation. In the Akan language, ka means to emit a sound, to utter, speak, say, or tell. This is from the Akan dictionary. Now, it's important for us to prove this when we're talking about, anytime we put forward information, we prove it specifically, linguistically, cosmologically, and so forth. If the Akan people say ka means to emit a sound, to speak, utter, say, or tell. When we say that we come from ancient Khanid and Kemet, Nubia and Egypt, then you should be able to look in a Medut Toro hieroglyphic dictionary and find the same word with the same meaning. So when we look for that, of course, that's what we have. In the hieroglyphic dictionary, you see ka, also written kai, to think out, to devise, to speak, to repeat, to say, to cry out, call out, tell out. So to speak, say, tell, emit a sound, ka or kai, and then ka with the nasal, ka, to emit a sound, to speak, utter, say, or tell. Same word, same meaning, spanning thousands of years and thousands of miles, unbroken, all the way into North America, because we still use the term. So that's the first term. Ka, also to surrender oneself to a deity or patron spirit. Now, Ka also means soul or divine consciousness. Now you have the term che, or ache, to become clear, visible, to appear, come to light. And then ache, a salutation, greeting, especially in the morning. And then you see it says, this is only used in connection with Ade, Adeche, the day breaks, to prosper and so forth, but to bring forth, to come forth, come into the light, all of that. That's when the sun rises and it becomes visible, comes into the light, all these different things. Hold on one second. Okay. So when you see to become clear, visible, come to light, what it's actually talking about is when we say good morning in the Akan language, we say ma, Ache or Ma Che. Ma means to give, and Ache means dawning, the coming into the light. When the sun rises and the rays break through the surface, break above the horizon and so forth, and the light shows up for the first time, we say Ache, Ache, the light has become visible. The force that was in the underworld, in the darkness, this radiant, powerful force that you couldn't see, all of a sudden this powerful force emerges from the darkness and manifests in the world so we can see. So we're illuminated and we're also vitalized and empowered when the sun rises. So the unseen power is manifest in the world of the seen, and we say Ma, Ache. So Che or Ache, to come to light, to become visible, shining, and so forth, luminous. That's talking about the rising of the sun, and that's why we say Ma Che, good morning. Now, so that's the Akan language from the Akan dictionary. Now you look in the language of ancient Kemet, Che, to rise like the sun. Also, like a king on his throne, when he rises and sits on the throne for the first time, that's like the sun rising between two mountains on the horizon. And those mountains are the throne of the sun, and it sits on its throne and so forth. To ascend, to shine, to appear. And what you see here is this little glyph right here is the first top half of the sun, just rising above the horizon, not the full disk of the sun, not the full circle, but the first top portion of the sun rising above the horizon. It's not fully above the horizon yet, and the rays beginning to shoot out. And that's important because we're still talking about dawning, the first light, when it's first becoming to appear, when things are first showing up. That's the symbol right there. So as we can see, Che or Ache in Akan means to become visible, to come to light, the morning sun showing up, and Che in ancient Kemet means to come to light, to appear, to shine, to become visible. And the actual image of the rising sun with the rays shooting out is the symbol of the term. So Ka and Che in ancient Kemet means exactly what it means in Akan. Ka, Che, to utter incantations, Ka, emit a sound, speak, utter, say, or tell. Ache, so that the force, the light, the powerful, luminous force can come forward. So when we say Kanche, to speak or utter incantations, Ka, to make the spirits come forward, and that's a ritual invocation and so forth, just like the solar disk, the most powerful force with regard to us on Earth, is hidden and unseen in the darkness at nighttime and so forth, is in the quote unquote underworld. Then it shows up on the horizon and the light floods the horizon and the landscape. We become illuminated. We can see around and so forth. We can see clearly. We become illuminated, wise, and so forth. But we also become empowered. Our energy is restored. When we invoke a deity by ritual invocation, the spirits show up and possess the person. We become illuminated with wisdom, but we also become empowered by the dispensation of energy that's released to the person and within the community. So, Kanche, to utter incantations to bring the spirits forward, and Akan, same thing in ancient Kemet. Now, to demonstrate that, and so first and foremost, when we look at when you look at that objectively and intelligently, that means that these are terms we've been using for thousands of years. Of course, that's not stealing a European term, conjure, and mispronouncing it. It's something we've been saying and that we brought over here. So when we say, I'm a conjure man, conjure woman, what is your ancestral religion? What is your practice? We can say hoodoo, we can say voodoo, we can say juju. We can also say conjure. I'm a conjure man, conjure woman. I'm engaged in the practice of conjure, conjuring spirits. But we're saying kanche now. So it's, in that context, it's a pan-African, quote unquote, term that covers all of our people. Now let's give an example. Let me make sure you can see this. All right. So here's an example. We wrote this article a while back. It's included in one of our Hoodoo journals and so forth. And we're talking about the Hoodoo doll baby. Now you hear about voodoo dolls, which they have those. They're Bachiao in the Ewe language, Bachiao. You also have Wanga dolls. You have Juju dolls. In Akan, we say Ndu Akwaba, which is a hoodoo. It's translated in English as hoodoo doll baby. Instead of saying hoodoo doll, we say doll baby, and there's a reason for that. Because we're translating the Akan language now. But this is a manifestation of Conjure. Continuity of Akan culture in North America. So we have different expressions of these ritual figures here. So some people are familiar with the Akuaba doll, quote unquote, fertility doll, as you see here on the left. You may have seen that on artistic sites and things like that. Let's look at the definition. Akua, a human figure made of clay. Also of wood as well. It is customary before the funeral ceremony to make figures or statues of the deceased, either of clay or wood, which are placed under a shed outside of the town and honored daily by meat offerings. So you have a shrine, the doll becomes a shrine in miniature, so to speak. There's a funerary function for the Akuaba and also a fertility function for the Akuaba. So when someone transitions, just like you put pictures up when someone transitions, people put a picture of their deceased great-grandmother and so forth when she transitions and so forth. What we would do is make sculptures. And then we invoke the ancestral spirit, and their spirit takes up a residence in that sculpture and communicates directly with the people. So sometimes we have, drawings or paintings as well, as you would see in ancient Kemet. But in West Afuraitkaitnut, West Africa, we would typically have sculptures for the deceased. But also there's a fertility function, which is the dominant function for the Akuaba doll. Now, so Akua is the doll itself. Ba means offspring or child. So ba means offspring. So if someone says me ba, that means me means my, and ba means child. So me ba means my child. Now, Akwaba, a kind of doll carved out of wood. Ba means offspring. Ba in English, that's baby, and so forth. So Akwa ba literally means doll, Akwa ba, child or baby. So the Akwa ba is the doll baby. So when we say we have a hoodoo doll baby, that's what we're talking about. Now, the Akuaba doll that you see in Akan culture, one of the reasons it's also called Akua is because the female divinity that governs Akuada, which is Wednesday, and the planet Akua, which the whites in our spring call Mercury, that is the female divinity Akua. In ancient Kemet, she's called Nebet Het. So let's look at that. And we're going to give you our chart. So this is our chart of the deities that govern the 7-day week in Akan culture. And we're named after these. Every Akan child is born on a Sunday, Monday through the week. Whatever day you're born, you're named after the deity that governs the solar, lunar, planetary body that governs the day. You'll see that Wednesday is governed by Akua on the feminine side and Awuku on the masculine side. You see the Akuaba doll here. In ancient Kemet, that is Nebuchadnezzar and Set, husband and wife. In Yoruba, that is Eshu and Agberu, who's the wife of Eshu. In Vodun, that is Legba, which is Set, which is Eshu, which is Kwekwanansi or Wuku. And Koni, the wife of Legba, and so forth. And they also govern the nervous and renal systems. So, But let's go back to, switch back over to that. And I want to show you specifically that divinity. The goddess Nebethet, who we call Akua and Akan, in one of our books, one of the 31 books I published, is Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, and Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakra. So the term Ankh or Yonk comes directly, or is the origin of the term Yonka or Yonk or Yoke and so forth. And Karakara is the ancient Kemetic term that they stole and started using Kakra or chakra in Asia and so forth. When we brought those terms over there, we proved that these terms were stolen from our ancestral language. The whole book proves that. So, but in the beginning of the book, we show the Akua Badal and the Ankh is the same ritual talisman. Onkwa in Akan means life. Onkwa is Ankh in ancient Kemet. We say Onkwa in Akan means life, vitality. And as we said, there's a, let me show this image. Let me scroll down real quick. Okay. So when we said there's a funerary function, this is a funerary function for the Akua Badal. We just read about a funerary function when they make the ankhs out of clay or wood and put them for the deceased and so forth and give them ritual offerings and all of that. The same ritual practice in ancient Kemet, using ankhs to ankh the deceased, the spirit of the deceased, to enliven or regenerate the spirit of the individual. We use an ankh for that. In Akan culture, we use an akua for the same process, place a shrine, put offerings and so forth, and evoke the ancestral spirit through that process. There's a funerary function, but then there's also a fertility function. Let's look at the fertility function. This is Nebethet. And you see she has the vessel on her head. She's the only divinity that wears the vessel on her head in ancient Kemet. And we call her Akua. She operates through the planet Akua, which is misnomer Mercury by the whites and their offspring. She is the one who uses her vessel to carry the ritual offerings from us to the ancestral spirits, the Nsamanfo and the Abosom, the deities, just like her husband Awuku carries the ritual prayers from us to the ancestral spirits and the deities. He's the communicator and the trickster and so forth. She carries the ritual offerings in her vessel. Same thing in Yoruba. She's called Agberu, the load bearer. She's the wife of Eshu, the trickster, Alegba, and so forth. He carries the messages, the prayers, back and forth. She carries the ritual offerings in her little basket. Same thing in Yoruba, same thing in Akan, Akua. Let me pull this up. So you see the little vessel on her head and so forth. That's for the ritual offerings that she carries. We said Agberu in Yoruba literally means the load bearer. Let's show you an image of a load bearer in the Yoruba tradition of southwestern Nigeria, just so you can see the continuity of culture between all of us. These are Yoruba women in ritual. They are operating in the form of Nebethet, who they call Agberu, meaning the load bearer. They have the vessel on their head and they're bearing the load and so forth. So they're operating in the same fashion as the wife of Eshu, carrying the ritual offerings, just like he carries the messages. So in Yoruba, Agberu, her name literally means load bearer. Nebethet means the mistress of the house, but that Nebet is literally means vessel and so forth. So the name of the goddess is also the word for vessel in ancient Kemet. The name of the goddess, the Orisha, Agberu, is also the word for vessel, the load bearer, and so forth. And then you find Akua, and just so you can see that, Neb, a cup, basin, or basket. So we're talking about a vessel. So her name, Nebet, the feminine version of Neb. Neb is the masculine version. Nebet is the feminine version. So that's Nebet Het, as you can see here. So the name of the divinity also defines her function as the one of the vessel. Agberu, the load bearer, it defines her function as the one with the vessel on the head. Then we have Akua and Akan. Any female child born on a Wednesday, Akua Da, is born on the day, the Da of the goddess Akua, and therefore that child is called Akua. Just like if a male is born on Sunday, like myself, which is Awusida, then I'm called Kwesi or Kwa Asi, a servant of the divinity Asi, and so forth. A woman is born on Sunday, she's called Akosua or Akosua or Esi, and so forth. Every day of the week, depending on the day that you're born, that indicates what deity you were assigned to pre-incarnation. When you come into the world, your soul name or Kradin reflects that divinity that governs your spiritual head. So Akua is the divinity, but one of her praise names in Akan is Kukua, as you can see right here. Kukua, spelled different ways. What does Kukua mean? A small earthen vessel. So what's important here is in ancient Kemet, the wife of the trickster and the messenger. Set is the trickster deity, and he's also the divine messenger of the creator and creatress of the universe. The wife of the trickster is the one with the vessel on her head, and she bears the load, and she carries the offerings. That is Nebet-Het. In Akan culture, the trickster is Awuku or Kweku Anansi. He's the trickster, but he's also the messenger of Inyonkopon and Yonkoton, the creator and creatress. The wife of the trickster is Akua, and she's defined as the one of the vessel. In the Yoruba tradition, the trickster or the messenger is Eshu, also called Elegba. The wife of the trickster or messenger is called Agberu, and she's the one who bears the load. She's the load bearer. Same thing in Vodun. The trickster, Voodoo, is called Legba, and his wife is called Koni Koni, and she's the one who carries the vessel and carries the offerings. So in ancient Kemet, in Akan culture, in Yoruba culture, in Ewe, which is Vodun, in every culture, the wife of the trickster is also the load bearer. So, and we, of course, we prove this through scholarship, through language. We compare the languages of the Yoruba, Akan, Ewe, as well as ancient Kemet. We teach a course on how to read and write the Medut and Toto, the hieroglyphs, and so forth. You can access those courses. But we prove that through scholarship, but we also prove it ritually because we invoke these divinities. So more information. So this is the fertility aspect of Akua. And the story goes as such. There was a woman who was not able to have a child. So what happened was she went to an Okomfo, which is Akan for a certain class of priest or priestess. In order to assist her in having a child, he invoked the divinity of fertility with regard to the fertility of the land, which is Akua, because Ekua also means fertile landmass or farm, land with life force energy in it, Ekua, and so forth. So he invoked that spirit of fertility and so forth. And then he made a ritual figure, which is the Akua Badal. And then he gave it to the woman, ritually prepared it, invoked the spirit and so forth, and told her to tie it to her back, just like they would tie a baby to their back. And you see the women, with the wraps and so forth, carrying the baby on their backs. He told her to tie the little Akua Badal to her back. It's called Akua Ba, or Akua's child. And when she did that for a certain period, and all the villagers were laughing at her, like, why is she walking around with a wooden doll on her back like it's a real baby? That's ridiculous. But at a certain point, she was able to get pregnant. The energy moving through that ritual talisman, the spirit of Akua, worked on her ovaries and so forth and healed her, made her fertile. And from that point on, you'll see that the Akua Ba is given to young women so that they can make sure that they're fertile in Akan culture. So Akua is Nebet Het. In the cosmology of ancient Kemet, they talk about how Nebet Het was the first infertile. She couldn't give birth, and then eventually she became fertile and so forth. She gave birth to the deity Anpu with her husband Set and so forth. So it's the same story. The cosmology or the expression is slightly different, but they're talking about the same kind of story. There's a fertility function for the Akua to make the woman fertile so she can give birth and so forth, and all the women fertile in the entire village. There's also a funerary function. When we look at the funerary version, that's the fertility version of the Akua doll. Let's look at now that's the fertility version, but then this is the funerary version. It's just the head, typically without the arms. So you see these heads on the top of graves. So that portion we read when talking about placed on the top of a grave, you will see these. And the head is tilted up because it's on top of a grave and so forth. And same neck, same ridges on the neck and so forth. And this one you see the body and so forth. So sometimes it's just the head, sometimes it's the head and the body, typically without the arms. That's the funerary version of it. And of course, it mimics the actual crown of Nebet Het from ancient Kemet. It is the same symbol. So you see all these little Nebet Het symbols on top of graves in our traditional Akan culture. It's the exact same Nebet Het symbol. Nebet Het has a funerary function in ancient Kemet, along with Set and so forth. When she goes into the underworld, there's a whole cosmology about that. We write about that in the book. So just like in Kemet, there's a funerary function for the Akua, a fertility function. Funerary function for the Ankh, fertility function. And so that book, Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, origin of the term chakra, is part of our 600-page book. This is our book right here, for those who are unaware. So we incorporated it into the new text. So this is our 600-page book, Odwirafo, Historical Cosmology, 8.5 by 11, 600 pages, full color. And you see 12 of the 31 books I published. You see the covers on the back of the book of those 12 books. We put them all together in one large 600-page encyclopedia-sized volume. One of those 12 books is Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, origin and nature of the chakra. And just so you can see, you can order that book, that 600-page book, on our website, on the link that you see on the screen right now. And we have a special for subscribers. You can place the order for just $13 and then pay the other $13 payments over time. But let's get back to this ritual piece. Okay. So now that we know, where does this whole hoodoo doll baby come from? There are Juju dolls, voodoo dolls, Wanga dolls, Juju dolls, and so forth. But in Akan, we say hoodoo doll baby. And it may sound like not an important distinction, but we say, when we were translating Akua ba means child or baby. Akua is the doll, so Akua ba, we're speaking English, we have to say, if we want to say Akua ba in English, we have to say doll baby. So when you hear someone say, I have a voodoo doll, that comes from Bachiao in Ewe. That's the original term, Bachiao. In Ewe, they still use. And then in North America, they say voodoo doll. Akua ba is used in Akan. Hoodoo doll baby is used as an English interpretation of Akua ba. So it's very precise with regard to the language. So in this image, we have an Akua from Akan culture, another Akua from Akan culture. Sometimes they have arms and legs and hands, and sometimes it's the stylistic version with just the straight body and so forth, with no hands and no feet and so forth. You have different versions. The one here was found in Virginia in the 1700s. And this one was found, the little broken in the middle was found on Jekyll Island in Georgia, 19th century. And the one all the way to the right was one that was composed by a friend of mine who practices the Hoodoo tradition. And this is a, a traditional Hoodoo doll baby, as you can see. These are the same. When you look at traditional Hoodoo dolls, they are Akuaba dolls. So we show the differences. You see the Ankh. This Ankh in the middle is from the tomb of Tutankhamen and so forth. You also see Ankhs with arms and hands. They're anthropomorphic as well. They're not just stylistic with the straight arms and straight body. They're both. And so we show these different variations. One of the reasons we show this variation these two are from the Asante region. On the left, the two on the left, the one in the middle is from the Fanti Akan people. And you see the arms and legs, hands and feet and so forth, which is similar to the two that have been found in America. One in Virginia in the so-called 1700s, right here, next to last, and one in Georgia, and it was broken, but, both. The reason why this one is important, let me click on that right quick. This one is important to us in particular, because we found this, and the way it happened was Mayan Samafo directed me one day to, because we have, we've purchased our Akuaba dolls, fertility dolls from, Ghanaian vendors. You go to a store that's a quote unquote African marketplace, and they have wooden sculptures, and you can get these, you can get these Akuaba dolls. And they're pretty popular. There's certain things that are pretty popular from Akan culture, like Akuaba dolls, kente cloth, the guaz so-called stools with the curved top, the crescent top, and so forth. Certain things are popular. Adinkra symbols. But Mayan Samafo said, you need to get an Akuaba doll from America. So I started trying to find an Akuaba doll in America. I went online and I saw this one. And this is one of the stylized versions with the full, almost full hands, legs and feet and so forth. And this one was being found, it was being sold. It was over $500, and it was being sold through an auction house. They didn't know what it was. They said an African-American slave doll. It was over $500. It was found on a plantation in Virginia in the 1700s, and they were auctioning it off. And to them, it's just an African-American slave doll, and, that's all it was. Of course, us practicing tradition and knowing this is a ritual talisman, we know this is an Akuaba doll, and when you look at all of the attributes and so forth, even the way the hair, quote unquote, cut or shaved is, that's the traditional shaved head by, women, as well as men who go, but in this context, women who go through training in our Akan culture to become Okomfo. We get our heads shaved and so forth, male and female. Also for Abosomfo, there are certain characteristics, the ridged neck and so forth. This is one of our Akan Akuaba dolls, carved by one of our Akan ancestresses in North America in the so-called 1700s. We found it on the auction site. One of our eldresses sent the money, the 500 plus, so we can access that. And now we have this 300 plus old ritual talisman of one of our ancestresses in our possession within Akwamu and Amaruka from the Akwamu Nation in North America, and as part of our shrine. And when people come out to our Hoodoo Mine, Hoodoo Nation festival, you will see her because we bring her out and put her on the shrine. So we just talk about that process in this short article here, the Undu, Akuaba, Hoodoo Akuaba, and so forth. So that's an ancient artifact of our people in North America. But what happens, and we also go into some detail about her in our film, Hoodoo, Akan, Ancestral Religion in North America. We talk about that a little bit as well. But what happens is we have a figure like that invoke the divinity Akua, the spirit possesses during ritual, takes up residence in the ritual statuary and so forth, and also the ancestress who carved the figure, that spirit comes forward as well. And she's come forward to multiple people in different, different jurisdictions where we were engaged in ritual and so forth. So she made herself manifest, but that's part of the Kankye or Conjure tradition. Our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors of our spirit genetic blood circles. We're connected with them. Of course, us, when you see a Black person in North America, we're born in North America, raised and so forth, and if people are brainwashed, they're told we can never know what our true story is. What actually happens is when you are captured in the so-called 1700s or 1800s, enslaved in North America, placed on a ship, forced over here, forced on a plantation, forced to breed and so forth and have children and all of that. And you may die in the fight of liberation, waging war against the whites in our spring, and you transition and you become an ancestor and ancestress. And your children are growing up in America and you're guiding them from the ancestral realm. They grow up and have children, which are your grandchildren, and they teach them how to pour libation and communicate with you, their great, grandfather or grandmother as an ancestral spirit, and you guide your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren and your great-great-great-grandchildren and so forth. And then at some point, your great-great-great-great-great-great granddaughter grows up and she gets married and she's ready to have a family. She copulates with her husband. The energy is generated. And then you're drawn as an ancestor or an ancestress back into the womb for the first time in a couple of hundred years. And then 40 weeks later, you're born into the world. So you're that exact same ancestor or ancestress who was taken from the continent. Now you're back in the world for the first time in nearly 200 years. And you grow up and you start learning about Afuraitkaitnut culture and languages and so forth. And then there's one out of all of them. If you happen to be Akan, if you're an Akan ancestor or ancestress, you can read about the Yoruba tradition, you like it. You can read about Voodoo, the Ewe tradition. You can read about the Igbo tradition. You can read about come in contact with people, and you like all of it. But as soon as you come in contact with someone who's practicing Akan culture, whether it's Hoodoo in North America or Akan people in Ghana and so forth, and you hear these terms, you're automatically drawn because those are the terms you used to say when you were here a couple hundred years ago. Those are the ritual practices. This is your culture. These are your people. So you're drawn to that. And then you incorporate it, if you get back involved in culture like we have, and you restore that culture. Every Black person born in North America is a returning ancestor or ancestress. We've been here before. We are Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people. And we're drawn to a specific culture because that's the culture we used to live as part of. Before enslavement happened, we were walking around somewhere on the continent, speaking a specific language, engaged in certain rituals, engaged in certain marriage practices and agriculture and construction and artistic endeavors and government and jurisprudence and everything else. Then we were forced over here, went through what we went through, but when we get reconnected to that, whether it's here or we see some expression of it somewhere else, we're going to be drawn to the place that we used to actually walk around in, and that culture itself. So when we look at the Hoodoo doll baby, that's an example of ritual Kankye, utter incantations, Kan, so the Ache, the spirits, can come forward, manifest themselves, and communicate. And when they do that, they share the culture with us. You can't lose ancestral culture. Spirit possession secures the fact and solidifies the fact that there's no such thing as losing the culture. If the same ancestor or ancestress from 400 years ago can possess and communicate, possess someone and show them how to pick a plant and prepare the herb for medicine, or show a ritual dance, or speak a ritual phrase, and you remember that and speak it yourself, or you engage in that same ritual dance that they're showing you when they're possessing the person, then every ritual act that we've ever done can be replicated when spirit possession takes place. You cannot lose ancestral religion if you're communicating authentically with your actual spirit genetic ancestresses and ancestors through spirit possession and spirit communication. So there's no losing of culture. Maybe on the surface, consciously, we may have forgotten something, but we can access all of it. So when we look at, let me take this down right quick. That's what the first film and the second film were about. The first film dealing with the specific forms of divination that we preserved in our blood circles in North America. And we, as we said, we won a film festival award in New York for best original documentary for this film. You can watch the film for free right here on our channel. So that's one of them. And then, of course, our second film, Hoodoo, Akan ancestral religion in North America. Let me pull that up. We went into detail specifically on the Hoodoo tradition. The first film, we dealt with all the various traditions from the various areas of the, in the United States and so forth. The second film we went into detail specifically on the Hoodoo tradition. As Akan ancestral religion in North America, I'm working on part 2. This is a Hoodoo film trilogy. The first one dealt with the cosmology and identity of Hoodoo. As Akan ancestral religion in North America, talking about the mojo and the Gopher Doctor and Gopher Dust and Jama Kakaru, which is Johnny Conqueror, High John the Conqueror, and the Jack Ball and the Haint spirits, just like you hear in Sinners, Haint, Haint. That's an Akan term. All these terms are Akan terms. We go into detail about that in the cosmology and spirit possession and spirit communication and divination and all these things that define Hoodoo. We went into that in the first film. In part 2 of this Hoodoo trilogy, which we're going to release at our film festival, we're going to deal with Hoodoo ritual. We started out with Hoodoo cosmology. The second film is going to deal with Hoodoo ritual. So let's go back. Okay. Always takes a minute for these images to pop up. Okay. So this is why we call our film festival Kankye, the Conjure Film Festival. We defined and coined the term Conjure film genre. And now that Sinners is very popular and our people are now thinking about Hoodoo and ancestral religion in North America, and everybody's hyper focused on that, this is a good time for us to have this film festival. We were going to do it back during the pandemic, but because of the theaters being shut down and people were asking for, proof of vaccines or, taking tests and negative tests, and that deterred people from going to, theaters. And it took a while, it took a couple of years before people were comfortable going to theaters. And we were planning, we'd already put the information out, we had the venue and so forth, but because of all that, we had to, postpone it. But it's okay because it's better to do it now. We have 2 films out now. We will have our 3rd film. We're going to accept other submissions from Black independent filmmakers in the Conjure film genre. So we're going to have about 5 or 6 Conjure films on that day. It's November 7th. This is the flyer here. You can also, if you would like to advertise your business on the website, the Kankye Films website, we have that information for that. Let me show you this right quick. And you can also get early tickets. So let me show you this real quick. That's the Kankye Film site. You see all the information about the film festival. As subscribers or followers of the work, you can get discounted tickets now, early bird tickets. You can also watch our 2 films. We're going to be screening these films and having a question and answer session for those who haven't seen it, as well as bringing in information from behind the scenes that you wouldn't know, to give you some detailed information and gems from the film that you may not have realized when you were watching these 2 films, plus the new films that are going to be screened. But you can watch these 2 films now on our website, on our YouTube channel right now. You can also access our books and courses. But what we're doing right now, you see this page right here. Let me blow this image up. This, by the way, is Nana Kwame Afrani, so-called George Washington Carver, who's a ritual practitioner as well. Nana Abena Araminta, Harriet Tubman, she was a ritual practitioner as well, and so forth. But you see we have Kankye Film Festival, the tickets and so forth, the regular price for subscribers is, the regular price is going to be $40 when the, as it, goes forward. But if you're a subscriber, you follow us, if you make a contribution to our crowdfund effort, any contribution of $15 or more gives you a ticket to the film festival. So let me put that link up real quick. Okay, so when you go to that link, you'll see all the details about the film festival. And let me give you I just want you to see the page real quick. And what we're doing right now, and we sent this message out to our subscribers. If you're not on our email list, you can send us a message and comment here, and we can put you on the list. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the Kankye Film site. But if you contribute to once again, if you contribute, you can get an early bird ticket. Instead of paying the full $40 price, you can pay $15 or more, and you get a ticket. $30 or more, you get 2 tickets and so forth. We have a limited number of discounted tickets for those who follow us. And then once those tickets are gone, the regular price tickets will be there. It's a 365 seat venue. So that's what we're looking at right now. So there's a certain number of tickets, that we can sell. And that means there's a certain amount that are, available for discount. So this is the Kankye Film Festival site. We just put it out like a little bit over a week ago, 14 days ago, 2 weeks ago today. So, and you see we did, we posted some of the videos. This is the flyer, the advertisement. You see we have Kankye in the Meduden Toro, the hieroglyphic script as well. And we're just talking about the film festival, what it's about, why it happens to be a great time to do it now as opposed to when we tried to do it a couple of years ago, because of this film that's, one of the most popular films ever. And for the first time in, for a very long time, our people are interested in ancestral religion. We've been hosting Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation festivals since for the past, in October, this made our 11th year. We're the only authentic Hoodoo festival in the country. We've been doing it for 11, years and so forth, but now people are interested in the Hoodoo tradition. We've published articles and, journals on Hoodoo, as well as our 31 books. Many of them are mentioning the Hoodoo tradition and so forth in connection with Akan culture. So now that people are interested, they see a film, now they want more information, they can come, to our festival, they can download our books for free, they can get this information. Now, so when you go to the site, you'll see that. Let me take you to the Kankye Films site, our regular website. So this is the website. And that's the website, on the screen right there, that's the link. And we're going to have, of course, we're going to screen our films. We're going to add the flyers for the other films that we're going to be screening as, people submit their films. We're going to go through them. We'll let you know what the films are going to be. You'll see the whole schedule and so forth. It's going to be 5 or 6 films that we screen, including these 2 plus the new one that I'm going to release, part 2 of the Hoodoo film trilogy, but then other films as well. We'll have a discussion in the context of, the information you find in centers and how it relates to the Conjure tradition and so forth. We have a couple of videos that we did, of course. Kankye, the Conjure Film Festival, what it's about. The term Conjure, defined, which we just talked about. but people who are unaware of this, we put it, we wrote it out on the site. And this section right here, we say advertise your business with us. You can place an ad either for the full column or a half column. And for a half column, it's $25. A full column is $35, and that's, a full column big ad similar to this ad right here with the, the poster for the film. So if you want a large ad or a smaller ad, you can place it, and it will be on the front page. It'll be on this empty space right here that you see on the right. That's where your ad will be. This site, in connection with our regular Odwirafo.com site, our regular Odwirafo.com site gets, on average, over the past few years, we've been averaging 2.5 million hits on our site, largely driven by the fact that the 31 books that I've published, the ebook versions are free downloads. So people come to our site, they download the free books and so forth, and then they see whatever else we're doing. So and we've connected that site with our Kankye film site, which is this one. So when people go to our site and they're like, oh, they're having a film festival, let me check that out. So when you put your ad on the, on the page, you're going to get a lot of traffic for your ad. So we did that because we always try to empower our businesses. Whatever we're doing, we try to bring in, other Black businesses so they can benefit as well. And of course, it benefits the community. So when you go to the Kankye film site, you will see that, and you'll see all of the information there. Now let me go back to the okay. So for the fundraiser site, we're trying to raise the first 25% to secure the venue. Of course, the venue is thousands of dollars for a 365-seat venue. So we can have, it's a state-of-the-art venue to show the films and so forth in the community. So we're raising funds to do that. We have to raise the first 25% of that, which is $1,300, as soon as possible. So when you make a contribution, again, any contribution of $15 or more, you get a ticket to the festival. $30 or more, 2 tickets. So that way, some people just contribute because they want to contribute, but also if you like something in return for the contribution you make, you get a ticket or more, one or more, to the film festival at a discounted rate. Once those certain set of discounted tickets are, taken, then the other 300 plus will be at the regular rate of $40. So Yedase too, as you can see right here, we just put it out, as we said, a couple of weeks ago. So it's been, we've had some contributors. We got up to 370. We can definitely get to the 25% we need, which is $1,300, so we can put the down payment on the theater, so we can secure the space. And once we do that, then over the next few months, we can raise the rest of the funds and cover it. The festival is in November. That gives people a chance. 2 things. It gives the filmmakers a chance to create films, whether they're short films or full-length documentaries in the Conjure film genre, which is different than just regular films. We're talking about specifically the ancestral religious practices of Black people in North America. There are films that, if someone's from Nigeria and they practice the Yoruba tradition, they have a film about that. Or someone's from Ghana, they practice the Akan tradition. Or someone is from Haiti and they talk about Haitian Voodoo. Or if they're from Cuba and they talk about the Lukumi tradition, they're from Brazil and they talk about Candomblé. There are outlets for all of that, which is fine. But our film festival is specifically, exclusively for the ancestral religious traditions that our people preserve in the United States. So if someone has a film about the Orisha tradition from Brazil, we're not going to accept that in our film festival because we're focused on building up and people learning about what did we preserve here. We've been told that we didn't preserve anything. In Voodoo, they talk about what the Haitians preserved Voodoo, but they think that Voodoo in Louisiana came from the Haitians migrating to Louisiana and bringing Voodoo, and that's not true. Voodoo was in Louisiana over 100 years before the Haitian Revolution. when the Aja and Ewe people were taken from what is now the, Dahomean Empire, which is Benin and so forth. It was the Aja Empire. They were taken there from there in the so-called 1700s, forced into Louisiana, other places, and brought Voodoo with them, a matriarchal version of Voodoo and so forth. So that's been here for hundreds of years, over 100 years before the Haitian Revolution. So Haitians didn't bring Voodoo to North America. Our people who are Ewe, they preserve that. Just like, Jamaicans didn't bring the Akan tradition from Jamaica into North America. Black people who are Akan and forced from the regions of the Akan empires brought to North America, we preserved Akan ancestral religion as Hoodoo in North America. So we need to showcase what we have done in North America specifically. So this is what our Conjure Film Festival is about. Okay, so in fact, so as we're going out, you can go to the site. Let me put this link back up. You can go to the fundraiser site now. We appreciate that. We appreciate those who contributed. Somebody contributed something today as well. So Yedase, we thank that person for that contribution. But as soon as we get to the 1,300 portion, we can put the down payment on the venue. We just got that contract back from the venue yesterday, the contract proposal. The date is, open. All we have to do is put the 25% down. We secure the date in the venue, and then we'll have time to, over the next couple of months, to pay the rest off, and we'll be straight. So the first order of business is to secure it. So this is what we're doing. So if you can make a contribution now, we'll set aside tickets for you, and we appreciate that. There's also another link in the chat room I want you to see. And this is that link right there. Now, we talked about our books, 31 books. We also have 42 courses, online courses that we've curated. All of them are archived, so you can access them. On this page, you will see some of those courses as well. You'll also see a couple of our books. So this is the page, the Ojirasim book. Again, this is the book right here, 600-page book. You can order this book now. It includes the origin of the term yoga that we just were talking about. That's included in the 600-page volume. We also have the Kuku Tuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, where we go into detail proving that Jesus never existed, Muhammad never existed, Allah never existed, Yahweh never existed, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik. All of these characters are fictional cartoon characters who never existed. We show how they were manufactured by the whites in Alice Spring after they invaded ancient Kemet, learned about our texts, corrupted Black divinities, made them white, and then made them personages and placed these fictional characters in Arabia and so-called Palestine and so forth. We go into detail to expose the fraud of these pseudo-religions and pseudo-writings. So, but there are many, that's just one of the books in this 12-book anthology, 600-page book. You see here that if you choose Afterpay at checkout, instead of paying the full price, which is $44 plus shipping, all you have to pay is $13 today and you place your order. And then over time, you pay the other three $13 payments over the next month and a half. So that's on that site. Let's go back real quick. This is what we're doing every Awusida, every Sunday. We started a few weeks ago, all the way through March 22nd, the Pert Im Heru, examination of our ancient texts. This is every Awusida Sunday at 11 a.m. online, 11 a.m. Eastern. We're examining the Book of Coming Forth by Day, the Pert Im Heru, misnomer the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but it's the Pert Im Heru, Book of Coming Forth by Day. And we're going through the text in detail and going in detail about the cosmology of the text. What we have is, people memorize and study the fraudulent texts of the Bible and the Quran and memorize these verses and so forth, not realizing that these quote unquote scriptures are fragments taken from our ancient texts, corrupted the fragments, and then represented to us as real. So, for example, the entire Moses story, going up on the mountain to see the God in the form of divine light, becoming the scribe of the deity, bringing the laws down and leading the people to the promised land. They stole that entire story from the Book of the Heavenly Cow, which is found on the walls of the tomb of Seti, as well as Tutankhamen. When we visited Kemet, we got the text itself, primary source. When Tahuti, the deity of divine wisdom, goes up on the mountain to connect with the Ra, he takes the form of divine light. He makes Tahuti his divine scribe and lawgiver, sends him back down as the leader of the people. He gives him the assistant, the baboon called Anan. So Tahuti is called Moshe and Aran, and now you have Moshe and Aran leading the people to the promised land. They stole the entire story from the Book of the Heavenly Cow. Same thing with the Jesus story, fictional cartoon character. There was no black Jesus, no white Jesus. Same thing with Muhammad, fictional character. There was no black Muhammad or white one. That's Muhammad. The waters Mu of Hapmet, the northern Nile. So Muhammad is the spiritual force that animates the waters Mu of Hapmet, the northern Nile. There's no character named Muhammad, didn't exist, didn't lead the people in a war, didn't bring Islam and all that other nonsense. It's a corruption of the male deity of the northern Nile, Muhammad. We go into the entire cosmology and so forth. So when you, in our book, so when you study our ancient texts, first of all, you see the fraud of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, the whole Hebrew myth. There were no black Hebrews. There were no white Hebrews. That entire story of the Hebrew group is 100% fraudulent, stolen once again from corruptions of our ancient texts, and we go into detail about that. So we need to learn our own texts just like people learn the fraudulent ones, because they talk about philosophy, they talk about biology, they talk about holistic health, they talk about interfacing with one another socially in harmony with divine order, they talk about ritual practice. So you learn a number of different things. You learn about astronomy, you learn about geology, you learn about medicine, you learn about ritual practice, you learn about socialization, you learn about sound systems of governance and jurisprudence. All these different things we learn about when we study our ancient texts. So morality, moral rectitude, moral consciousness, all these different things. So we're going through Pert and Heru. You can connect with that. When you click there, you'll see there's no set cost for that. It's donation based. If you want to make a donation, you can. If you don't have to, but we meet every Sunday going all the way through March 22nd. We've done two. We did, a couple of the chapters so forth, plates 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to be on plates 5 and 6 of the Papyrus of Ani this Sunday. So we'll send you the links, when you register. There's a registration. We do it on the Zoom platform, open to Black people only, of course, as all of our courses are. So when you register, we'll send you the archives from the first 2 sessions and the links to the text, so you can download these papyri and so forth and read through them. Go through the first 2 sessions when we examine these texts in detail to talk about what they're actually, sharing. And then when you get to Sunday, you'll be ready for plates 5 and 6. And you can pre-read, you can check it out prior to Sunday. We're getting into the detailed, more heavy information. The first was an adoration of Ra. That was the first week. The second one was an adoration of Asar, which is detailed information. Also the weighing of the heart portion of the text. So we went through all of that. But now plates 5 and 6 of the Papyrus of Ani, now we start getting into detail about the in-depth cosmology and the various divinities and so forth, how they relate to the organs of the body, all kinds of things. So that's every Sunday through March 22nd. So again, if you missed the first 2 weeks, register now, go to the page, click on Per Imheru, register. We'll send you the first 2 video archives of the first 2 sessions we did, and then you'll be up to speed for Sunday. And it's not like you have to hear those first, but it'll be helpful to do so. Hold on a second. Okay, also on this page, you see it says Medut Soro. We mentioned this earlier. Reading and writing the language and script, hieroglyphs of Kemet. So it's course on reading and writing the language. It's in 2 parts. Part one is 6 weeks. Part 2 is 6 weeks. It's all archived, so you can get the archived version and so forth. We did this a while back, but we archived it. We go through a 271-page book on reading and writing the language and so forth, and we go into detail about that. So you can learn how to read and write the language itself, and we can bring more information because we can look at the languages, the living languages of Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, and compare it with the language of ancient Kemet and show us the same language. Just like we did with Kankye earlier, we can do that with all of the terms in the language of Kemet. So we have a better understanding than Egyptologists because we're still practicing this religion, and the languages, the words in the languages of Western, Central, and South, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, still exists that you find in ancient Kemet with the same meanings, the same deities, with the same names and the same ritual colors as it did back then. We still invoke them today. So we have a better insight when we're teaching language. And plus, we saw people teaching classes on how to read and write the language for hundreds of dollars. Our class is only $15, and if you buy both of them, part 1 and part 2, you can get them both for $20 as a bundle. And you can choose Afterpay at checkout, and you only have to pay $5 up front, and then the other 3 $5 payments over the next couple of months. So we always try to make our stuff affordable. And finally, that's some of the many things that we have coming up. We just posted this the other day. Our book, Akradim Bosom. If you see this, we just saw this chart earlier. These are the deities of the 7 days of the week. Hold on a second. Okay. So this is going to be another 600-page volume. It is on pre-order right now. So you can order it. You can do the pre-order. We just put this out the other day. Yedase, we thank you to those who ordered that. So it's a 6-volume set, but we're putting all 6 volumes in one 600-page book, just like this 600-page book that we just showed you. This is going to be another 600-page book, 8.5 by 11, going through all of these male and female divinities that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week that we are named after. They govern all natural cycles in creation. They govern the 11 major body systems, as you can see here: reproductive, lymphatic, circulatory system, excretory system, renal system. So when you study the deities, you're also studying astronomy, you're also studying geology, you're also studying biology, you're also studying psychology and so forth, social interaction. So we're going to go into detail about them. We have articles on each one of them, which you can download for free on our website, but we're turning those into the full books. So while you're waiting for the book to come out, it's going to come out this spring. You can do your pre-order, and you'll have it at a cheaper price and so forth. But in the meantime, you can read those 11 articles on the different divinities and get a sense of what you're going to be studying. But the book is coming out. So we've been working on this book for some years. So it's finally coming out. If you want to do a pre-order, you can do it right there on the page. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share tonight. I want to make sure if you have any questions or comments in the chat room, just let me know. I don't want to miss anything, but yeah, so Sunday, again, check that out. We also have our certification course for meditation instructor certification. The new 4-week course is starting next week on March 10th. So when you go through that 4-week course, you become certified as a susu, which is the ancient term for meditation instructor. That is a professional credential. We've certified 59 people so far over the past couple of years. We've been teaching susu and first published on susu or meditation from the Afuraitkaitnut African original perspective over 22 years ago. But we started certifying people to be instructors like 2 years ago. So you can take that professional credential, you can go to places of business, you can go to schools, after school programs, cultural organizations, human services organizations, and so forth. They pay people $100, $200 to come and conduct a session with their employees, like a 20-minute session to enhance work productivity, decrease stress, decrease anxiety in schools, to enhance learning performance and focus and discipline. So, and even if you go to human services organizations, when they have group therapy, they'll bring somebody in like on a Friday and they'll say, hey, this person is going to take you through a 15-minute meditation session, lower anxiety, become more disciplined, weight loss, all kinds of things that are beneficial when you engage in susu meditation. So you become an instructor where you can conduct sessions on an introductory fashion. You have that credential. When you have that certification, that satisfies funding sources. So when a corporation normally will write a check for $200 or $300 to bring someone out at their, they're having workshops for their employees, and they break the ice by having someone conduct a meditation session so everybody can get on the same accord. They have to write a check, but they have to satisfy the funding source. Is this a legitimate individual? When they see you have a certification, a professional credential, then you can get that check cut and you can do the work. If you don't have any credential, you're just somebody who says, hey, I teach meditation. Some organizations will do that, but many of them won't. They have funds set aside to, pay people to come out and do these things, but they need to see that your credential, whether you have a degree in psychology or you went somewhere else, or if you have a credential from an actual certification institution, which ours is. So that's starting the Susu course, 4-week course, starting March 10th. So, but there are a number of different, I can't go through all of the different courses and books we have here, but you'll see the different ones on the page. So you'll see that. But for right now, what we're really trying to get done is to secure the venue. As we said, we just got the proposal. So if you can make a contribution today for the Conjure Film Festival, we appreciate that. If you can attend, so you get the ticket, $15 or more, you get a ticket, one or more tickets. If you can attend, good. But if you're somewhere where you can't attend, if you're overseas or you're somewhere where you can't come in November, and instead of getting the ticket, you'd rather use that $15 or more contribution for one of our books, just let us know in the comments section. So if you say, hey, I'm making a contribution, I'm not going to be able to come to DC and attend the festival, but can I instead receive one of your books or one of your courses instead of the ticket? Just let us know in the comment section and we can definitely do that. You can choose which one of the books you want, or, one of the courses that you see, like maybe the learning how to read and write the hieroglyphs and so forth. If you'd rather do that because you can't physically in person attend the festival, we can make that exchange as well. But that is the piece right there. Okay, so before we go, I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody's. Okay, say greetings, happy to catch you alive. It's my first. Okay, Medase, we appreciate it. And Medase and Yedase means we thank you in the Akan language. In fact, Me means me, Da means to lie, and Ase means at your base. So Medase, if you hear someone say Medase, it means I lie down before you, I prostrate before you, I lie down at your base. So that's like a very expressive way of saying thank you in the Akan language. Or Yedase, that means we thank you. So Yedase, we appreciate that. Okay. Okay, Hitzak, we appreciate that as well. Yedase. Just want to make sure we didn't have any questions. Okay, so I don't see any questions. All right. Okay, and again, for those who came in a little bit later, on the Kankye Film site, if you have a business, you would like to advertise your business on the site, it's going to be up there all the way through the film festival, all the way through November. So every time people get on YouTube, they see we're talking about the Conjure Film Festival, they go to our website, they'll see your business on the website, so you'll generate, a great deal of traffic through that. You'll be on the front page of our site. And for those who came in a little bit later, let me show you the page once again. This is the actual Kankye Films website. So this is where people will go. They'll see your, advertisement on the site. They'll see the information. There'll be more flyers, as we said, as the new film submissions come in from the other independent Black filmmakers. They'll see this information about what Kankye is. They'll see some of the videos. They'll watch those. And then they'll get to this section down here that's blank right now, but there'll be a number of advertisements for Black businesses who are supporting the film festival. It's going to be an annual festival. It's going to be a staple for Black business and culture. But your advertisement will be in the column on the right. So if you like to do that, just reach out to us and we can place your, you can be on the site. Okay. Okay, so Yedase, we thank all of you for tuning in once again. And Yedase, Yebeshi Abia, we will meet again. That's it.